The story king. They said the silver bands would keep her human. They lied. The chains screamed as Lyra tore through the dungeon corridor, her bare feet slapping against stone slick with centuries of suffering. Behind her, the castle guards' shouts echoed like thunder, but she didn't look back. She couldn't. Not when freedom breathed just beyond those iron doors, not when 23 years of captivity had led to this single, desperate moment. The silver bands around her wrists burned like frozen fire, twin manacles that had adorned her since birth. Her mother's last gift, her father's final curse. The metal seared deeper with each frantic step, punishing her for daring to run, for daring to hope. Close the gates, someone bellowed. The wolfless girl is escaping. Wolfless. The word stabbed deeper than any blade. They'd called her that her entire life, the girl born to the most powerful bloodline who couldn't shift, couldn't hunt, couldn't even sense the moon's call. A defect, an embarrassment, a prisoner disguised as a ward of the court. Lyra crashed through a doorway and stumbled into the night. The full moon hung overhead like a silver eye, mocking her with its beauty. Her wrists throbbed in response, the bands constricting until she gasped. She'd almost forgotten what they told her they were for, to suppress the violent tendencies of her bloodline, they'd said. To keep her safe from herself. More lies to keep her docile. The forest loomed ahead, dark and wild and perfect. She ran toward it with everything she had left, her lungs burning, her vision blurring. Almost there, almost free, almost. A figure materialized from the shadows directly in her path. Lyra skidded to a halt so violently she nearly fell. The man before her seemed carved from midnight itself, tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes that gleamed amber in the darkness. Power radiated from him like heat from a forge, primal and overwhelming. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but her body had frozen, held captive by the weight of his presence. "Well," he said, his voice a low rumble that vibrated through her chest. "What do we have here?" She knew who he was. Everyone knew. Theron Blackfang, the Alpha King of the Northern Territories, the most feared wolf in 5 kingdoms. He'd come to her castle for the treaty negotiations, bringing with him an entourage of warriors who made grown men tremble. She'd watched from her tower window as he'd arrived 3 days ago, never imagining she'd be this close to him. Never imagining she'd be prey. "Please," Lyra whispered, hating the break in her voice. "I just need to pass." His gaze traveled over her, the torn dress, the bare feet, the silver bands gleaming on her wrists. Those amber eyes lingered on the bands for a long moment, and something dangerous flickered across his features. "Those bands," he said quietly. "Who put them on you? Does it matter?" Behind her, the guards were getting closer. She could hear their boots, their weapons. "Please, I have to go. Answer me." The command in his voice was absolute, the kind that compelled obedience from every fiber of her being. But there was something else there too, something almost gentle beneath the steel. "My father, before he died, he said they'd keep me safe." Theron moved closer, each step deliberate. He was so tall she had to crane her neck to meet his eyes. "Safe," he repeated, the word laced with barely contained fury. "Do you know what those bands really are, little one?" She shook her head mutely. "Suppression cuffs, forged in dark magic and silver blessed by blood witches. They don't keep you safe." His hand rose, and she flinched, but he only brushed his fingers along the edge of one band. Even that gentle touch made her gasp. The metal, seared white hot, then ice cold. "They cage your wolf, starve it, slowly kill it from the inside out." The words hit her like physical blows. "No, that's not. I don't have a wolf. I'm wolfless." "You're a daughter of the Moonborne line," Theron said, his voice dropping to something almost tender. "The most powerful shifter bloodline in existence. You were never wolfless, Lyra Moonborne. You were chained." How did he know her true name? She'd been called Lyra the Ward, Lyra the Broken, Lyra the Disappointment for so long she'd almost forgotten her birthright. The guards burst into the courtyard behind her. "Step away from her, Alpha King. She's a prisoner of House Ravencrest." Theron didn't even glance at them. His eyes remained locked on hers, burning with an intensity that should have terrified her but instead made something long dormant stir in her chest. These bands are killing you. I can smell death on them. How long have you worn them? Always, she breathed. Since I was born. A muscle jumped in his jaw. 23 years. They've had you caged for 23 years. He looked at her then with something that might have been or might have been rage. She couldn't tell which. And yet you're still standing. Still fighting. Do you know how strong you must be to survive that long? She didn't feel strong. She felt like a broken thing held together by desperation and foolish hope. Alpha King Theron. The guard captain's voice rang out. That girl is property of House Ravencrest by royal decree. We demand you return her immediately. Now Theron did look at him, and the temperature seemed to drop 20 degrees. Property, he said softly, dangerously. You dare claim a Moonborne daughter as property. The guards shifted nervously. Even they could sense they'd made a terrible mistake. Theron turned back to Lyra. Those bands are bonded to you by blood magic. If I remove them incorrectly, the backlash could kill you. His hands came up to frame her face with surprising gentleness, tilting her chin up so she couldn't look away. But if I do nothing, they'll kill you anyway. Slower, more painfully. The choice is yours, little wolf. Do you trust me? Trust him. She didn't even know him. He was the Alpha King, a creature of legend and violence and power beyond measure. Every logical thought screamed that this was madness. But his hands were warm against her skin, and his eyes held something she'd never seen before, not pity, but recognition. Like he saw not what she was, but what she could be. Yes, she whispered. His smile was fierce and approving. Brave girl, this is going to hurt. He grasped both her wrists, his fingers wrapping around the silver bands. The metal began to smoke instantly, burning his flesh, but he didn't flinch. Lyra screamed as agony lanced up her arms, as the bands fought to maintain their hold, as magic older and darker than she could imagine resisted. Look at me, Theron commanded, his voice cutting through the pain. Stay with me, Lyra. Your wolf is in there. Can you feel her? And somehow, impossibly, she could. A presence in her mind, weak and starved but alive, so blessedly alive. Stirring after decades of forced sleep. The bands cracked. Power exploded outward like a shockwave. The guards were thrown backward. Trees bent in the blast. And Lyra felt something tear free inside her chest, something wild and ancient and absolutely furious at being caged for so long. Theron ripped the bands from her wrists and threw them aside. They hit the ground still smoking, the dark magic inside them dissipating into nothing. For a moment, there was only silence. Then Lyra's body convulsed. She fell, but Theron caught her, lowering them both to the ground as she shook violently in his arms. Every nerve ending was on fire. Her bones felt like they were reshaping. Her senses exploded into overwhelming clarity. She could smell everything, hear everything, feel the moon's pull like a physical touch. That's it, Theron murmured against her hair, holding her through the transformation. Let her out. Your wolf has waited long enough. The shift took her all at once. One moment she was human, the next she was running on four legs, her consciousness merged with another's, seeing the world through eyes that gleamed silver in the darkness. Her wolf was massive, her fur the color of moonlight, her power undeniable. She was magnificent. Theron shifted beside her, his own wolf form even larger, midnight black with those same amber eyes. He pressed against her side, steadying her, protecting her as she learned to navigate this new existence. When she finally shifted back, exhausted and trembling, he was there with his cloak, wrapping it around her naked form and pulling her against his chest. Why? She asked, her voice hoarse. Why did you help me? Theron's hand came up to cup her cheek, his thumb brushing away tears she hadn't realized she'd shed. Because I've spent 3 days in that castle smelling your suppression, feeling your pain, and watching them parade you around like a shameful secret. His eyes blazed. Because you're my fated mate, and I'll burn that entire castle to the ground before I let them cage you again. Mate, the word resonated in her soul, in her newly awakened wolf, with perfect certainty. Come with me, he said softly. Be free, be wild, be everything they tried to stop you from becoming. Lyra looked back at the castle, at the guards cowering in the distance, at the prison that had held her for 23 years. Then she looked at Theron, this dangerous, powerful man who'd seen her true self when everyone else saw only weakness. Yes, she breathed, and as the Alpha King lifted her into his arms and carried her toward freedom, Lyra felt her wolf sing with joy for the first time in her existence. She was finally home, the Story King, where every tale unleashes the extraordinary. Subscribe for more stories that will set your imagination free.